Welcome to our third creator chat. Today we've got a creator who's worked really hard to create comics and to build a community online. I know he's also been very supportive of libraries and very keen to have his graphic novels at libraries. He writes for kids, YA, and really all ages. So thanks for joining us from Sydney, Stephen Cock.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you actually, because we've talked online a few times, but we've never talked in person. So it's awesome to have you here.
Oh no, thank you. You've been so supportive of my stuff as well. So I really appreciate even before this chat, you've been really supportive of my work. So thank you.
Now, the world has shut down and we're on lockdown. So, and I know that you live in the Sydney area. So how are you going? Are you working from home? Are you busier than before? What's happening?
Oh, it's actually a bit tough. Look, currently my contract's frozen. Like I've got my day job's currently frozen. So I'm really hoping for all the restrictions to live and then I can get back to it. I'm a contractor. So yeah, they told me at the end of the month, look, just stay home for a couple of weeks. We'll call you. So I'm just waiting for everything to lift. The other thing is I do a lot of library workshops and a lot of school workshops as well. So I visit the school, as you can imagine, all that stopped. So I usually visit probably about one or two schools every fortnight, and one or two library visits every fortnight. It's all. There's nowhere to go really. Yeah. So I've actually spent quite a lot of my time catching up a lot of writing. So it hasn't been all bad actually. It does feel weird though, being stuck at home a lot.
Yeah, that was one of the first few things that we had to do when we closed the libraries, to contact all the different creators, authors, all the different guests that we were going to have for different events, and say to them, well, we're really sorry, but we're closing down and we have to cancel, and we don't know what's happening, when we're going to open. That was really hard,
I know. Yeah. And for me, a lot of those events are a lot of fun because you get to meet people, and after an event, you get to chat, you get to talk to people. Like one of my happiest memory was after one library event. One dad came up to me. He goes, I don't know if you know, but I actually live close to 2 hours away from this library. I'm going, what are you doing here? He says, my daughter, she's 9. She found out you were talking here, and she made me drive all the way here, 2 hours here and 2 hours back just to meet you. And it's like, it's fantastic. I love it. And so after that, I spent a good extra hour just talking to her, talking to the dad and stuff like that. I like to talk to people. So it's a big shame when you're stuck at home.
Yeah. So how are you using your time? Because, like some people are desperate to exercise, work, keep busy. Others are quite happy to, this is a chance for me to slow down, read books, watch movies, not do much at all. Where did you sit on this?
I'm doing something I should always do. I'll show it to you. I'm editing. So I don't know if you can see all the red marks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the thing I hate doing, which is basically going through all my work, finding spelling mistakes, grammatical errors. She wouldn't say that. He wouldn't do that, and so that's what I'm spending all my time doing, because I don't like editing, and it's very time consuming. And so I actually, look, I've got 2 hours to spare. I'm just going to go through and start editing. So
yeah,
I've also got a couple of other small editing jobs for a couple of other creators. So what I've been doing as well is they've been sending me their scripts and stuff like that. So I've been editing for them. It's funny. I don't mind editing other people's stuff. Actually, I really enjoy it. I hate doing my own stuff because I can't stand to reread my own work. It's weird. I like reading other people's things. I just, when it comes to my own stuff, I cringe.
Yeah. So editing is actually my background before libraries is in teaching and also in media studies, and I love editing. I absolutely love editing, but that's video. it's different. But yeah. Anyway, did you read comics as a kid, or do you remember your favorites or the comic that changed everything for you?
I do actually. So I don't even remember what the issue it was, but my mom bought me a Batman and Robin comic. This is, oh God, 30, 35 years back when I was a kid. And I loved it. I can't even remember what the issue was. All I remember was it was exciting. You saw the panels. I was originally from Malaysia. So we had a lot of comics which came from China and Japan as well. And those type of comics I mean, Batman was the superhero one, but I was raised in a country where comics were much more a medium as opposed to a genre. So it was, hey, comics are just prose mixed in with images. But the US market has taken comics as superheroes mainly. But for example, a lot of Chinese comics are very historical. They tell a lot of the stories about, ancient kung fu masters or ancient kings, and it actually is a lot of those type of stories. So for me, I fell in love with the medium as a kid. The Batman comic, some of the Chinese comics, a lot of the Japanese things, mainly because they told stories the way I like to I like to digest them really. I read novels and stuff like that, but if you have given me a choice between reading a comic or reading a novel, man, it's easy.
Yeah, for me, it's like I read books. I read lots of books. I read a lot of actually non-fiction as well. But for me, every time I read a comic, it just feels comfortable. It feels like home, you know.
Yep.
And I like what you said about the medium, because growing up in Europe, European comics, for me, that's the way I see it. It's a medium to tell stories, and in Europe, you can find comics on anything. There are lots of non-fiction comics, but there are also lots of science fiction, fantasy, noir, all sorts of things, all sorts of genres. Any genre you like is represented.
Correct. And I like that. I really like that idea that comics is more a medium to tell a story as opposed to, and I suppose that's where maybe the US market has changed it a little bit. I love superheroes, don't get me wrong. I still read them. But I really want to see, like from the US, more detective stories, more love stories. Like, I want to see everything. I want to see just the medium being used to its fullest as opposed to, hey, look, I don't want to read comics. It's just superheroes, which it isn't. It's a really, really good medium. And like, I think as a librarian, like, what are the top selling graphic novels? Raina's books,
Yeah.
Dog Man. Look, I'll be fair. I've got an 8-year-old girl. We've got every Raina book out. We've got every Raina book. We've got every Dogman book. And I've read it as well because I read it with her.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's really using the medium a lot, especially how the Dogman books go, where they have a lot of fun with the medium. Have you read it for the Dogman books?
Oh yes, yes. I've read them all, and same with Raina's books. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan.
But like, the Dogman books where they have fun with it, you know how they have the fliporamas where they actually use the medium of the book to, look, you can flip the pages. Michael loves it. And I think it's so fantastic that you're using the medium the way it should be used. You're really, like, number one, you could never do that in a novel. You can't flick through it. And I think I love it. I really love all those books because they are really utilizing the medium as opposed to just being a superhero. But I think I love it. I really love that the way graphic novels are being portrayed now. I
Yeah.
think I'm really hoping it all comes back.
Yeah, I really think that in the US, there's been a huge change away from superheroes. From all the image stuff, Boom Studios. There's a lot of great stuff that's being published that's really different, to what the traditional perception of US comics is. So yeah, that's cool. Let's get back to you though. When did you start to write for comics, and what was the realization, or how did you go about it, that you thought, yeah, I want to write comics?
Okay, this is back a couple of years back. So actually about 8 years ago, before my daughter was born. So look, as a kid and stuff, you always say, hey, look, I want to write. I want to write for comics. I want one day to have a Marvel contract, a DC contract, whatever. You always, it was exciting. And I suppose then life catches up with you a lot. You know, you've got to get the house, the mortgage, you got to worry about how you're going to pay the next bill. And life does catch up with you. But before my daughter was born, it came to me that, you know what, if after she, a bit older, she asked, Daddy, what's your passion? What do you enjoy doing? And I said, oh, I love reading comics. And I still do. And I read a lot of books with her, especially like the Reynards, the Dogman stuff with her. And then she then asked me, did you ever want to write? And if I said to her, oh, I've always wanted to write, but I never got round to it, I don't think that's the right thing to do. So about when she was born was back when I decided, you know what, I'll take a punt at it. Like I've got all these outlines and things like that. And I'll be honest with you, I procrastinated for close to a decade. And in hindsight, I wish I just did it. My first completed script was Tabby. That was the Romeo and Juliet with cats. That was my first completed script. Um, I got a couple of agents to look at it, and the weirdest thing about that was a lot of the agents. I actually got really good feedback from the agents saying, "Hey, look, this is it's exciting, it's interesting. The kids will love it. The cats don't talk. It's different." But nearly every Australian agent I spoke to, I think 4 different Australian agents, all of them basically said, "We like it, but there is no graphic novel industry in Australia. I don't know how to market this for you. I don't know who to approach for you."
Yeah.
There was one agent who took it up. He decided, you know what, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to give it a go. We got farmed around to about 3 or 4 different publishers, and more or less every single Australian publisher actually said, we don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I got put in front of Scholastics, and Scholastics Australia. So you can remember, Scholastics is a big company. Scholastics Australia said to me, look, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to market this in Australia for you. We do have Scholastics Graphics, they have a separate imprint, but that's US controlled. You need to apply directly to them. We can't help you with that. So after all that, it was a bit discouraging, but life it is what it is. Then I took the punt. You know what? If I thought, I'll crowdfund this, get the artwork done, take the stab at it, and then see what happens. Then I got lucky. It got picked up. I think there was one library, and I know you know this person, Karen Dawate.
Yeah.
She has been so supportive. If you let me talk, I'll give you 20 minutes of how fantastic she is.
Yes.
But like without I know she's the one who actually, I think this is back 3 or 4 years. She's the one who actually I saw introduced me to you, actually, if you remember, through one of the links.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, she's been so supportive. She actually said, look, Ashfield Library would like to pick up some copies. And then from there, it just, I was lucky. I found an Australian distributor. They said, look, we'll get you to Amazon, book deposit, the rest of it, and the rest is basically history. When I found out, like, it's easier just to go through a small boutique publisher who funnels you directly.
Yeah.
And from there was, and Karen has been fantastic, without a doubt. She's been instrumental. And one of I think Wordsmith, one of my current books, I was really lucky. It's now in 500 public libraries all across the world. It's in Singapore, it's in UK, it's in New Zealand, it's in Canada. It's great, and I'm really, really, and for me, why I do this is because I want my stories to be told. And what better place than a public library for people to borrow, to enjoy it. And, it makes me happy. It just makes me happy when you look on the catalog and you see it's been borrowed. I love it.
Now, I'm going to pose something to you. So, you've done really well in reaching out to libraries and getting your books to libraries. So let's forget for a minute that I'm a librarian.
Yeah.
As an indie writer, is it a good idea to have your books at libraries where people read them for free? What do you get out of it?
Oh, there's two things. In Australia, it's good because Australia has something called public lending rights, which means every copy in a library you get. Can't remember what it was, like $2 a book or something, which is great. It does help, and every year you just get that little bit of $2 every year. It's not much. It's not enough to retire on, but it's nice. It does help out. But more than that, it's why people write, and especially as an indie writer. Look, I'll put some really scary numbers to you. You know that. You know this. The average published author earns about $30,000 a year. That's the average, absolute average. For people overseas, the average Australian minimum wage is $74,000. Not minimum wage. The median wage is 74,000. Please don't quote me. I'm not. So basically what you're saying is if you're a published author, you live below the poverty line in Australia. So you got to think that it's not why I do it for the libraries is I want the books to be read. So it also helps that a lot of school kids read it. So for example, Wordsmith is currently in about 300 primary schools around Australia. And it lets me get the opportunity to go and talk to the kids. And I think that's important because, honestly speaking, though, if I get nothing else out of all this, one thing I would love to hear 10 years, 20, 30 something years down the track is someone actually says, hey, the reason I became this screenwriter, this actor, this whatever, is because I read something that you wrote 30 something years ago, and I decided to make this happen. If I get one of those, oh man, I'll be honest with you, forget all the money. That would have made it all worthwhile, just to know that. One thing this gets a little bit more political, sorry, but the one thing I find is that, and this actually really makes me a bit sad, arts isn't really that valued nowadays, and I find that a bit saddening that I rather, and you probably love this, I rather the librarians, the teachers, and all those people who inspire, who build, who create, I want them to earn the big bucks, you know? I want them to be the ones going, what people aspire to. And it's actually slightly different in, say, in Asian countries. In Malaysia, teachers are very well respected. People make their lives to become a librarian, to become a teacher, because there's a lot of respect, a lot of prestige along with those jobs. If you go to an Asian country and you say, I'm a teacher, oh man, it's like, oh, sensei, senpai, what, you know, you get that respect straight away, and they value it. I just find that, again, being a bit political in Australia, that the value quite isn't there. And even creators in those countries, they get the sense that they get valued a little bit more. And I really want to see that build in Australia. And I think it is changing. I think when people realize how important the arts is, and again, just for international audience, it broke my heart. I think a couple of months back, the federal government decided, you know what, we don't need a federal Department of Arts anymore. And they canceled it. And they merged up. And they merged arts with roads and infrastructure. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard the news, that broke my heart. It's like, so you value, I'm not saying that roads aren't important, don't get me wrong, but you're merging the arts department. You're giving them your own name, you're merging them with the roads infrastructure. And I think that's, to be honest,
when I read the news about that, I first I had to actually go to the internet and fact check it and make sure that that was actually true, because to me it sounded like, you know, something from The Onion or, you know, The Chaser or something like that. It sounded like a fake news item. You know, how can you put arts you know, with roads and infrastructure? To me it was completely incomprehensible. But yes, it's actually true that they did it. But yeah, anyway, so what's your advice for indie publishers? So what's the best way to get their books to noticed and into libraries? Because you've been quite successful in doing that.
Well, there's a couple of things. And look, I have a very good editing team. I've got a lot of really good beta readers and things like that. And this may sound a bit harsh, but you have to let people read your work. And I know a lot of people are very possessive, not possessive is the wrong word, very protective of their work. You have to let it go. And look, I'll be honest with you, my first few drafts were absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I like to say that's why I hate editing my work, because I look back on it and I cringe. It was really, really bad stuff. And it is, and it will always be, don't get me wrong, your first draft, it's going to be bad. And I'll just put it out there, you're not going to write your masterpiece on your first go. It just won't happen. So a lot of people, when you get it, you need to let it read, and then you have to be a bit honest with yourself, because I have quite a lot of, I am part of a lot of groups, so a lot of people do come to me and ask me to check advice. I'm very, very constructive in my advice and stuff like that, but I sometimes have to say, hey, look, you do need to make it slightly better before once. And look, in terms of against in libraries, there are some key criteria, and this is, thank you, Karen, again, ISBN. It has to be perfect bound. It can't be staplers. It has to be in a format where it can be represented. I mean, it can be borrowed, cannot be damaged. And the other thing would be is it has to be, you have to know your audience. That's probably the main thing. I've got stories where people are trying to pitch to kids and there's nudity in it. And I'm going, you realize you've just canceled what you want by putting a nudity scene in there. And they'll say, and I said, look, I've got nothing wrong with those things, especially if it's integral to the story. If you need that scene, it's great. But just note that you're not going to pitch to primary schools or even high schools if you have nudity in one of your books. It just won't happen. And it could be the most tasteful nudity. It could be the most important part of the story, but just understand where your audience sits. So if you get your ISBN, you get your perfect bar, know your audience, know your work as well, the rest will come, I think, pretty easy. And again, like I said, I was very lucky Karen was supportive, and it does help to be really good to have one librarian support you, because that opens up inroads to other librarians, other libraries, other schools, and it has a really nice flow-on effect.
Yeah. Now you're running a Kickstarter for the second volume of Terra Olympus, and that's current right now. So I really enjoyed the first one, so I'm really looking forward to the second. How's the Kickstarter going? What can you tell us about the project?
Oh, look, it's going pretty well, actually. I'm actually really surprised, mainly because of how the world is now. I thought it's going, and look, again, my thank you to everybody out there who supported, shared links, everything. It makes it worthwhile, having all the assistance to make it happen. Can you give me 1 second? I just need to grab something. 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. So while Stephen is off screen, I'll just say that he's publishing 2 books this year, I believe. So we're going to hear more about that soon. Yeah.
Sorry, something was beeping in the background. I just want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
My background degree, so what I studied at university was IT. So the one reason I really enjoyed writing Terra Olympus, and I think you've read it, so I'm hoping that you can see it as well. There's actually a lot of proper IT terminology and the way the approaches happen. For example, in IT, you have a lot of what they call events that happen in any given computer system. So if you look at your laptop, there's, you can actually get a lot of data, how fast your fan turns, what the heat of the computer chip is, and they are called events. If an event passes through a certain parameter, it then becomes an incident. For example, if the temperature of the CPU is 40 degrees, that's fine. What happens at 50? What happens at 60? What happens at 70? And a lot of the concepts I actually put into Terra Olympus were all actually proper computer concepts in terms of networking and things like that. So I think I had a lot of fun with it. That there's stuff like high availability where you have 2 parallel systems running. So, and the reason I also enjoyed it was a lot of the technology that's in Terra Olympus are actually real world tech. So the design of the space station is actually what they call the helix systems, which are actually real NASA designs. the spaceship that's used is actually very similar to a current how NASA would have designed it if they had the money to do it. A lot of other stuff, especially in volume 2, how to generate oxygen. So there's something called artificial chlorophyll. So we, and I love it because one of the things that really fascinates me is space travel. So I have actually been doing a lot of research into real world tech, real world space travel, how things would happen, and how what they call a closed loop system would work. So if you actually read through some of the bits, it actually runs through that from A to B. And I love it. I love writing because I get to research, and it's actually one topic I love researching. My absolute dream is still to see the curvature of the Earth, and I think it will happen within the next 10, 20 years. They'll have space tourism, and I would love it to, just be able to see the Earth from space.
Just a quick question on Terra Olympus. Is there a plan to how long the series is it's going to be? Is it like it's a 3-volume series, or it's I don't know, or?
It's I'll take the one step back though. Everything I write with the ending in mind. So one thing I find I don't enjoy writing is pure serial, pure Bold and the Beautiful, where it's Neighbors, that type of genre, where you just come up with a new plot line every week, or the serialized comics. I'm honestly, in terms of writing, I'm actually not a big fan of that, where you just have the characters go on different adventures all the time. Because what I find is it limits the writing in terms of the stakes, that you can't actually say. That's why I think one of J.K. Rowling's, she did an amazing job, because I honestly think she had the end in mind before she started Harry Potter. And I think it made all the books so much better for it, that there were all the linkages, knowing how it's going to end. Yeah. So just in terms of Terra Olympus, I have the end in mind already. So I'm guessing it's going to take about 6 or 7 volumes, but I didn't know exactly how it's going to end. I know where Mia's going to end up. I can tell, I won't spoil anything, but it's whenever I write, I don't like to write continual serialized work. I always have the end in mind, and I know how it ends.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And I think you're also planning to publish Wordsmith Volume 2 this year. How's that going? And will that be through Kickstarter as well? When can we expect it?
Oh, so Volume 2 actually went on Kickstarter last December. So it's...
Yeah, I missed it.
Proof copy.
I missed it. Oh my God. That's embarrassing.
So the proof copy, it was launched last December. So give it a couple of weeks. I already submitted for distribution, so the publisher will take care of all that, and we can talk offline. But so Wordsmith, actually, the really good news for it. It got picked up by an animation company in Sydney. So the problem about it is, so I completed the Bible and the rest of it submitted through. The only issue I have was that they were going to take it to, there's 2 big conventions that happen in terms of animation. One was in March. That was missed. Unfortunately, with the world as it is, that was missed. And the next one in June has been canceled as well. So what happens with a lot of these things, the animation company was planning to take it up there, see if they can get what they call broadcaster interest. So they can say, hey, look, Netflix, Cartoon Network, and all the rest of it, are you interested in this? So unfortunately, that pipe dream of mine looks like it's going to be delayed for another, honestly speaking, probably another 6 months to a year. What I was really hoping to was come June to say, hey, look, I've got an animation contract, I'll sign, yay. We're going to do a pilot for Wordsmith, but yeah, it looks like it's been delayed at least 6 months, realistically a year. So
yeah, that's a shame. But wow, I don't know what the hell happened at the end of the year for me. I somehow missed that. I need to catch up on that, and I will order it for sure. Okay. Now, I've noticed that all your projects are creator owned, published by yourself. Do you ever see yourself with a big publisher writing for for established property?
I do actually. There's a small publisher in Melbourne who I do work for, comics to movies. Um, I do a bit of that. Look, I would love to. If the main thing would be is happy to tell my stories, happy to tell other people's stories. I've written for a lot of different anthologies, other people's characters and things, and I enjoy it. I really do. Um, I'm open, basically. If anybody is interested, um, in terms of other IP, I'm more than happy to. That's why I said that the dream is to get that contract from a big publisher and say, hey, look, write this character. I would love that.
Hmm. Cool. So at the end, because I know you have to go soon, so I like to ask, three books that you've read recently that you want to talk about, if you have.
Okay, so one I'm halfway reading. There's a science fiction writer. He writes Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski. So I really enjoyed Babylon 5. And he actually had a long run of Spider-Man comics. And actually, I was lucky enough, I actually found the trade paperback of his Spider-Man series, and I'm working my way through it. And I have to say, it's really good. I'm really, really enjoying that. I'm trying to find, because I've started watching Altered Carbon on Netflix. You can see I'm actually going through a lot of sci-fi phase.
Yep.
I'm trying to find those books, and I think my next read will 100% be that series, because I love it. It's the whole fascinating of downloading consciousness in, just in case people don't know. Altered Carbon has the idea that you have a chip in your head, which basically stores all your memories, your personality, which means what they call your sleeve or your body is inconsequential, because you can jump bodies, and it allows you for long space travel, because rather than your body having to travel the distance, they just send your chip across, through whatever transmission method. I love it. I think it's such a fantastic concept. And probably the last one, which I'm currently reading, is we've got a small kids one. I'm reading a lot of books with Michael. So, like I said, I think there's one or two of the Reynard's Babysitters Clubs we haven't read. I'm trying to work my way through it.
Yeah.
I cannot say enough about Reynard's books. It's there's so much heart in it, and even for me, I'm a cynical 40-year-old guy. I love it. It's especially with Michael, just to see the character. It's a lot of Reynard books are so character driven. It's just to see the characters start from. You can just see, and because I do a lot of the writing things, to see them go through what they call, and I think you know this, the hero's journey, where they start off with a flaw, they have to work through it, they argue with their friends, that have the whole conflict, and then they become better because of it. Oh man, it might seem very, very simple, but the way it's presented, the way it's written, even for, you think it's a teenage girl babysitters club book, I would say a lot of writers could learn, and me included. Don't get me wrong, I'm learning from it. Could read it and go, oh my God, I have to be able to apply that type of character development into what I write, because it's fantastic. I'm
Yeah. Look,
I'm
I
blown
have to
away.
say, like, when I discovered her books, and obviously I'm not the target audience either, you know, but when I discovered her books, I was blown away. And she makes it look so easy, but she's really nailed it. And then I actually gave her books to my wife. She's read them. She loves them. My kid's 9, a 9-year-old boy, and he loves them as well. So we're big fans in this house as well. Now, thank you for joining us today. So, what's the best way for people to keep up with your projects and what's happening?
Look, and I'll send you the links. You can probably put the link in the comments,
Yeah.
description below. Facebook's probably the best way. I've got a Facebook page. I post a lot of stuff on there, and also on my website. And I'll send both links to you after this. You can put them in the description. Yeah, reach out to me. And look, I'm actually very, very accessible in terms of things. So people send me an email, send me bits and pieces. I will do my absolute utmost to reply.
I know you do.
It'll make me very, very happy to reply.
I know you do. You've always been really good at communicating, talking to different people, putting people together. So yeah, thank you for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Take care and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. See ya.
Okay, thanks. See ya.